Welcome to another insightful episode of Parent Entrepreneur Power. In this podcast, Mary Catherine Johnson and Evan Johnson highlight the successes and struggles of parents in business. They share how to be the example of success in entrepreneurship to foster the same in your child, and so much more. Are you ready to power up?
Okay, welcome everyone to another amazing episode of Parent Entrepreneur Power. I'm here with my lovely co-host / mom, as always. And we got a really cool guest today, Angus Nelson. Angus, welcome to the show.
Great to be here, guys. Really ecstatic.
Good. So for people who maybe don't know you, don't know what you're all about, go ahead and fill us all in. Who are you and what do you do?
I'm Angus Nelson. I live in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm a men's performance coach. I work with high-performing men to get the hell out of their own way. And so I work with these high performers who have built a business around themselves, oftentimes becoming their own bottleneck, whether they're in leadership or being an entrepreneur, being in startup. And they're the ones that end up being the ones who answer all the questions, who have all the product decisions, who suddenly get overwhelmed and say, what have I done? And I help them break free of all that, delegate, and get a different mindset on how to build their businesses better. So that's what I do. I have 3 children, aged 26, 12, and 11. And can't wait to dive into this conversation about how we're teaching entrepreneurship with our little ones.
All right.
That's a pretty amazing little intro there. Yeah, high performing men and some. I think that comes from a high performing gentleman sitting right here in the conversation with us. So, all right. So we talked off mic about some pretty incredible things that you're doing. So tell us a little bit more. You mentioned your 2 younger kids and the fact that when we were talking off mic that you are really helping them understand this whole entrepreneurial world. How first off, did you make the actual decision to have them join you in this kind of entrepreneurial journey, or did they kind of come to you? You know, which came first?
So I'll back up. When they were both born, well, actually the first one, so I have 3 kids that, like I said, that the older one, she was I think 14 when Scarlett was born, our middle child. And so I came home to be a stay-at-home dad in 2010. Scarlett was, I think, 14 months old ish, and Duncan was born. And so I had a toddler and an infant and being a stay-at-home dad, and I started writing a book about a season of my life when things weren't so great. And I ended up marketing that and, trying to sell that book. And I started learning about social business marketing, et cetera, et cetera. I say all that to say, from the moment they became, cognitive, I started trying to impose the right kind of thinking into their minds. And so when I put them to bed at night, we would, read stories, we would pray, and then say, I love you, I'm proud of you, and I believe in you. And I just wanted to just kind of ingrain that in them. And then they got a little bit older, and I kind of added on to this. I love you, I'm proud of you, I believe in you. Dream big, work smart, and don't quit. Why? And then they would echo back to me and say, because I have what it takes. And so I've tried to entrench in their brains, and ingrain in them this understanding that all things are possible. And in the last few years, I've added to that. And every day we're getting better and better. And then they'll trot off to bed saying, smarter, smarter, prettier and prettier, and all this other ridiculousness. But that's kind of our routine. And my wife would say, don't you ever get tired? I'm like, nope. Because those are some of the things that A, I knew that I struggle with, and B, in my practice, these are some of the very things that we wrestle with as entrepreneurs. Being worthy, being deserving, and knowing we have what it takes. So that's the kind of the premise and foundation I built with them. And as we've kind of gotten into this entrepreneurial world, it started with 2014. I was working for a company out of San Francisco, and we were studying this whole peer-to-peer space, like Airbnb, Uber, Lyft, in that world. And my wife's like, what if we just drank our own champagne? And we were working remote already out of Alabama. And so I was like, well, that sounds like a cool idea. And so we put our house on the market and sold it. And every month we were in a different city from San Diego to Aruba. And we told our oldest daughter, who now was at college, we said, hey, we're going to travel for a year and every month we'll be in a different city. And she said, y'all crazy. And thus begun those crazy Nelsons. And so my kids were involved as my wife started blogging about this and actually became a travel influencer. And over the last, several years, she's gotten more profound in what she does and, gotten some notoriety and has done, trips where, she's getting paid a decent amount of money, and the kids are all a part of that. So that was the beginning, because now they're full on content creation. They're seeing it, they're feeling it. And of course, they watch all of their own, YouTube stars. Thank you, Dude Perfect, etc. And they get it. And this goes on beyond that. So I'll pause for a second, because otherwise I'm just gonna.
Yeah, I gotta focus on that for a sec, because so many parents that we talk to on this show really stay focused more on skills and the fact that their kids have to go to college to get the skills to make a living and all those kinds of things, which are all well and good. We all need skills to, do whatever we're gonna do. But I love that you talk about mindset, because like you said, these are things that we struggle with. We, as kind of first generation entrepreneurs in this online space and in this world where everyone's an influencer and we're all compared to everyone else's highlight reels. Yep. And to take that idea and help your kids start further along the path than you did. Really, that's, to me, the best gift we can give them.
Yeah.
Way more important than skills.
Yeah.
To me.
And I tell it to my clients, right? Tactics and strategy I can give you all day.
Yeah.
But the way you see you is your own limiting factor. Because we don't understand that whether it's a money story, and quick definition on that is the story I have in my mind about money, that money is good or money is evil, that money can help or it can hurt. It makes me an unpleasant person. I was about to cuss. I don't know if you guys can cuss, but an unpleasant person or a nice person. And whatever it is that we have in our head, that story about money, it might be, my dad never made this much money. Why should I? And that becomes this kind of threshold that actually holds our businesses back. Related to that, my kids have seen us in business that didn't go well. After I rolled off that company when we were traveling, one of my clients asked me if I would start a company with he and some other guys. And I lasted about 9 months, blew through all my savings, and suddenly I'm over 50 grand in debt. And we had to sell our house to get out from under it.
Yeah. That
was not a happy time. And so we moved from a 3,000 square foot dream home into a 2-bedroom apartment. And we spent a year just kind of eating, for me, it was eating some humble pie. And what does this make possible? Like, how do I reinvent? How do I get back up from this? So my kids have seen, both the blessing parts and the challenging parts. And I've always kept a very straight conversation with them that this is very honest, very real, and very transparent. And so they're actually getting to see all sides of this entrepreneurial journey. And at the same time, while we're working on that mindset, to see, like, if you unlock your brain, you can make money with your mind far easier than you can with your time. And that's entrenched in my kids. They know it now.
Yeah. But not only that, what you did by allowing them to see the tough parts as well as the great parts, how they saw you identify with that tough part, or not identify, actually, that you didn't basically, I'm terrible, I'm bad, I'm never going to make anything of myself, all that stuff that many of us do when we hit a failure. If they saw you handle that much more elegantly than I did, it took me a long time to get over my big issue, my big failure and big debt and all that stuff from the 2008 crash. But how they saw you say that to yourself will help them not be afraid of it.
Yeah.
and realize that this is part of life. It doesn't reflect on whether I'm a good or bad person or not. It just
Mhm.
is, it just happens, and I'm going to learn from it and do something different next time, right? I mean,
Yeah.
hopefully you did handle that a little differently than I did.
Yeah. And, you know, I'm not gonna lie, there were some hard times in that, but to your point, we used it as teaching mechanisms. And, you know, since then I've told my kids, I tell my clients as well, is like, you know, life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. We've heard that before. Hopefully you have. If you haven't, there you go. And it's giving you wisdom and insights and advantage for your future. And therefore, nothing that happens to our lives is something that becomes detrimental. It becomes something that can become a superpower. It's something that becomes our fuel. And it becomes, you know, something that you can turn that pain into a promise. You can turn that story into something that can help someone else be set free if you choose to. And most times that's you. You're the one that gets set free, because when you face these challenges, all of a sudden the fears get eradicated, because it's like, huh, this didn't kill me. I'm not dead. And, you know, I had a summer slump coming from, we had a flood in Nashville. Well, we had a second flood actually just this past week. But fortunately we didn't get that one. The first one wiped out our 3-car garage, and we lost 2 cars, and we lost a whole bunch of stuff. And it was, you know, it's just stuff, but it still hurts and it feels like you're out of control. And so I was really distracted working on, you know, putting Humpty Dumpty back together again, you know, managing contractors and, you know, hauling junk around and throwing a ton of stuff away, and then trying to navigate with insurance claims that don't exist because insurance doesn't cover any of that except the cars. And the emotion of it was a little taxing. And so my sales started to slump because I was not in a sales mindset or a sales, you know, kind of environment. And I started to sweat. And in my back of my mind, I kept thinking about, oh, am I going to have to sell my house again? Am I going to go through this again? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
You know, and I was starting to wake up in the middle of the night with this tightness in my chest and sweating. And I'm like, oh, hell no. No, we are not going through this again. And so I went to my own practice of, like, you know, diving into my mindset. And so I have a couple of recordings of stuff that I've told myself for my own affirmations. I started listening to. I started doing tapping, which I wasn't really into tapping before, but now I think tapping's awesome if you're not familiar with it. And some meditation. And I woke up one morning super early, like 4:30 in this state. And I put myself through the paces of realigning my mindset, putting myself into a higher, you know, mind focus. I heard my wife kind of stirring downstairs. So I made her a cup of coffee, and I went down and handed her the cup of coffee. And I said, baby, it is my honor and pleasure to bring prosperity to my family. And it is my gift to step out and to make the sales and make the revenue that our family deserves. And I went to work. And within 2 weeks, I got back online. And it was like simply by changing the energy in my mindset. And my kids are a part of this. Like, they get to see this. And, you know, this is the thing that we don't understand, that how you approach these problems, how you approach their kids are always watching. And they're going to follow what you do. And so in my past, my dad was always sarcastic. He wasn't really in touch with his emotions. Like, he's just was disconnected, cool guy, really generous. Wasn't the best at a lot of these other areas of self-awareness and emotional intelligence and whatnot.
Yes.
And I'm trying to stand on my dad's shoulders, taking what he could give me, and then going through some of my hard times. And we haven't even gotten into my biggest dirt of my first business, where I buried that sucker in a whole different realm. And my dad walked me through a divorce, addiction. You know, I blew up my business, mass debt, and my dad was there with me and loved me unconditionally. And he restored me, right? Or was part of the story that restored me. Now I get to stand on the shoulders of watching that kind of servanthood. And how can I bring that and fuel my kids to the next level? I don't want them standing on my shoulders. I don't want them standing on my head. I want to hold my hands up as high as I can and get on my tippy toes.
Yes.
And get my kids so far out in front of whatever's in front of them, that success is just a natural byproduct of the greatness within them.
Isn't that amazing? I mean, what a gift we have available to us, and taking those lessons we've learned, those hardships. Not that our kids are never going to have hardships. I mean, there is no way they can go through life without any hardships. I mean, they will have plenty of opportunities to learn difficulty. But, addiction and debt and those kinds of things, if we can help them avoid those things, then yay.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. We just had one of these moments, those parenting moments. So we homeschool, and my youngest son, he's like Alex P. Keaton. For those of you who remember Family Ties, like that's kind of my kid. Super bright. Everything must be done certain ways. He's funny as I'll get out too, which is not so Michael P. Keaton, but nonetheless, he sometimes will get super stubborn about his homework. And he'll get so like fixated that he'll burst into tears, that he can't figure something out because it has to be done this certain way. And everything inside of you wants to like come alongside and show him a different way. And in that moment, my wife, especially, because if you're familiar with the Enneagram, she's an Enneagram 2. And so she's a total servant, giver, says yes to everything and wears everybody's feelings on her own shoulders. And so she's like dying inside. She's like, I just want to help him. And yet she knows like, this is the hardest thing, is knowing he's got to figure this out on his own.
Yes.
And so 2.5, 3 hours later, after lots of tears and a run to the bedroom to compose himself, he finally comes down. He's like, all right, I think I'm ready to see this differently. And it was like my wife gave him a big hug. She gives me a smile and a wink. It's like, here we go. But had we jumped in, he couldn't learn the lesson.
Yeah.
Couldn't learn the lesson.
Yeah. And that's our jobs. Our job is to help them find those resources within themselves.
Evan, what's the biggest lesson you've learned watching your mom?
That is such an interesting question. I mean, to be honest, probably just what it takes to be an entrepreneur and having that kind of instilled, because I remember when I was a kid, in what would later become my bedroom, she had when she did the first business, Mommy Loves, the t-shirts. I don't know if you know about that. But she had her first business. Riot was your first business, right?
Yep.
It was t-shirts. You made custom t-shirts. Yep. And you like
maternity.
For maternity, like with fun, little puns and stuff on them. And you'd press them yourself. There's a big press in the room that will later become my bedroom. It was always ridiculously hot in there, and you were always in there doing it, working in that. And so just seeing that, the lesson I learned is that I didn't have to do what everyone else did. So I ended up, that lesson even was a big influence on I eventually dropped out of college in favor of business and entrepreneurship.
Right.
So yeah, right. Honestly, I don't know if this, I know this makes you, Mom, feel good about this, but that was definitely a big factor in that decision. Seeing that, like, you, Mom, you got a degree in nutrition and food science, and I think I learned that that's what you did and like internalized that like within the last few years. Before then, I was like what? I've never seen you. You eat food, but beyond that, I've never seen you do anything related to nutrition or food science. Right. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so it's like, but I've seen you do all this other stuff and make, plenty of money doing it. And so, yeah, that's what's one of the things we're trying to help parents with right now with this podcast, is giving that kind of an example to their kids as well.
I love that.
Yeah.
My oldest daughter also dropped out of college. She was studying marketing. And I said, baby girl, unless you're going to like a high-end reputable college, what you're learning is at least 2 years behind the curve, because it takes that long for curriculum just to be approved.
Yeah.
And in marketing, that's 4 iPhones.
Yeah.
I mean, just to put that
that's
in
crazy.
perspective, that's 4 iPhones of time travel.
Yeah.
And I said, the best way for you to go learn marketing is to go learn boots on the ground. Like, go work for a startup and just feel like you are useless and don't know one end from the other, feel like you're failing, and you will succeed.
Yeah, just go out and fail a bunch in
Right?
marketing. And that's how you learn
That's
marketing.
what she did. She went out and she'd come home from this company and literally in tears, crying, I speak a different language. I don't know anything. Now she works for a startup and she's heading up all their marketing. She's crushing it. But had she had learned that, if she'd stayed in school and followed all the protocol, not likely. She could have, but it would have taken longer.
4 years. I mean, that's absolutely insane.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like a degree in marketing is, in today's day and age, probably around the same usefulness as a degree in like medieval literature or something like that. Like, it might be interesting, sure, but
I think if you had literature or journalism, you'd be better off.
honestly, probably
Storytelling, right? It's just the power of storytelling. Yep.
Oh yeah. So that's cool that she did that, because that's that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
And you learn by doing it. You learn by failing.
Exactly. And
Yes.
there's one thing that I love to tell my clients too, is so much of this stuff, you have to have a faith in yourself. In my own example and so many other people I know, it's like at some point you have to believe in you. And for my kids, it's like, when can you believe in you? Like, I want them to believe. That's why I tell them I believe in you, because I feel like we're more motivated by the people that believe in us than, us believe in ourselves. It's like we borrow their confidence. We borrow their element of strength in that context. And so if I can have my kids get to that kind of audacity, they can move mountains. They can totally do amazing things when they believe in themselves. And then you cross that over into understanding that the only thing that's holding us back is our choice. And anything that I want to learn, let me rephrase it. Anything I want to do, I can learn. The power of the internet, the power of the Googler. Like, I can go and search it. YouTube's taught me how to do so many things, right? So I can learn anything. And the second thing is, like, when I look at successful people, it's like they believe oftentimes differently than I believe, which is also something I can change. What am I listening to? What am I allowing to go into my little brain computer? And so whatever I listen to, it's kind of like what you hear about, you think about, you talk about, what you talk about, you bring about. And so with our kids, it's like, what are they listening to us for? Like, we're programming, we're indoctrinating them to a belief system, as so is, their education and their entertainment and everything else. All of it is indoctrination. So I want to give my kids as clean of data as they can get, so their little computer can spit out good, clean data. And from that context, it's like they start to believe certain things about themselves. And psychology shows that their brain now will attract or create the level or caliber of self-belief into the interactions, relationships, opportunities, and experiences that are around them. Because your brain wants to validate how you believe about you. So I want to give my kids this confidence in who they are, because they're going to go out into the world, attract or create these incredible experiences, engagements, relationships, and opportunities that I could never even dream of.
Isn't that fun? Yeah. So with that in mind, tell us how you have taken that mindset work you do with your kids every day. This is just a daily exercise of living, as far as I'm concerned, that whole mindset shift that we try and help them make. So tell us how you've taken that and actually used your business or used your resources for business to help your kids understand more of the tactics and more of the things that they're going to have to do on a daily basis to grow their own business?
Sure. So I got 3 short examples. One we shared offline before we started was the first attempt. They watched some videos about people buying couches out of, a thrift store or on Facebook Marketplace and then flipping them and selling them. So they said, let's do it. They had saved up their money, which will bring me to the second story in just a second, is where they made the money. They had enough money to buy a couch off of Facebook Marketplace. They got it for like $35. And it was this old vintage couch, and it had these, panels on the bottom of fabric. They ripped off those panels and then they pulled off the little staples. They got this furniture cleaner. They went and cleaned it all out and picked everything out of all the little cracks and crevices. They got this thing looking beautiful, put it in the garage and ready to sell it. They were thinking, after they did some little comparative pricing, they could probably get close to $300 plus. And then the flood hit. And so they got a taste of, here's our investment that literally went down the drain, right? We had to trash that thing. So lesson in entrepreneurship is it's not always going to go the way you think it's going to go. All right. So here comes my lesson I give my kids. What does this make possible? Like, that's the number one question, is when something happens, it's not life happening to me, but happening for me to give me a lesson advantage for my future, as I stated before. All right. So what can we learn from this? All right. Well, let's not we're not going to store any of our furniture in a place where it floods. Great lesson. That's a life lesson that you should learn forever. Perfect. Right. Brings me to the second example is we have an Airbnb. So we have been blessed enough to have this pool house on the back of our property. And fortunately, it's up on a deck. So the floodwaters, when it came in, were actually rushing right under that deck, which was filled with an Airbnb guest. Bless their hearts. They still gave us a 5-star rating. But it's my kid's job is to help turn over this Airbnb. And so we've trained them how to clean, and especially with COVID, they go in wearing masks, they wear gloves. And, this 10 and 11-year-old kid, now 11 and 12, have spent the last year making money and getting paid to actually have the responsibility that when we get a 5-star for someone's experience, they get to share in that victory. When somebody has a testimony, they get to share and like, oh, the place was so clean. It was so beautiful. It was so ... So they're getting some pride into what they do and that their work matters. And then the last piece is, managing their money. Like my daughter, she loves, she's kind of old school. So her favorites are Lucille Ball and Carol Burnett. If she could, she wishes she would have been Breakfast at Tiffany's. That would have been like her dream, is to be that actress, Audrey Hepburn.
Audrey Hepburn, yes.
Yeah, that would be her thing, right? So she makes all of her own clothes. She designs stuff. She's just artsy fartsy. School, not her jam, just not her jam. Money is like those floodwaters. They just come rapidly and they leave just as swiftly. Like, she doesn't think about saving and, investing or anything. Like, she's all about experience. Like, I'm going to have an experience. So that's where she spends her money. My son, on the other hand, I told you, Alex B. Keaton, is like Mr. Stash it, hoard it. He's got it all like laying around, and then he saves it up for something really big. And so when he makes an investment, for him, it's also an experience, but it's on a different scale. And so we've been talking about to the kids about how resources create opportunities, and you have the power to choose how you express that opportunity. And so these are all the different ways that we've kind of used, entrepreneurship into teaching them lessons that you otherwise would have never been able to teach them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. Entrepreneurship is an incredible vehicle to really explore all these different things. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah.
How about college? I mean, you mentioned your older daughter, I think you said, dropping out of college and doing those kinds of things. What about the younger two? Are you going to really try and guide them into going to college, or is that just another choice that you're giving them as an option for experiences and knowledge and things like that?
Yeah. So, kids this age, what do they want to be when they grow up changes, on the weekly.
Oh yeah.
And so it's really a matter of like when they get to that stage, one of the things that we talk about is college is for roles that you need college for, right? If they want to study something else, then go find that thing. I mean, again, in this day and age, you can get trainings for almost anything you want to do, and you can get a certificate, which doesn't mean much more than a diploma. The real question is, can you execute? And to me, and this is what we talk about with the kids is, words are nothing. Knowledge is nothing. Learning is nothing. Execution is everything. Because if you execute, you can do the learning, you can get the knowing because you're in real time. And these are some of the things that our kids in this day and age, critical thought, taking ownership and having, audacity to assert yourself are not always in great supply. And so we're trying to train our kids. Like one of the things I say to my clients all the time, and this is the basis of my next book, is the oracles of the UK, the great sirens called the Spice Girls, who said, tell me what you want, what you really, really want. And I'm trying to get my kids to wrap their brains around, what do you want? Because if you can get clear, you can manifest it. If you can see it in your insides, you can be it on your outsides. And so these are some of the things we're teaching our kids, that college is not necessarily a vehicle you have to take. It's an option that you can take. And my wife, she's got 2 master's degrees. She knows all about higher ed. She was a director of enrollment at a 15,000 student school. Like, she knows the whole space. She knows the gamut. We could play the game. But she's like, I don't know that it has the value that it used to. And so we're trying to look at it really kind of from a strategic standpoint. If it's necessary, yes. If it's not, what else is possible? And both my kids would tell you, why would I go and get in a bunch of debt when I can go and make a bunch of money? And I think that's a pretty cool opinion.
Yeah, in the same amount of time. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You talk about clarity. So tell me a time, the first time, maybe if you can remember, when you understood and were clear and then were able to then execute. Do you remember that time?
Yeah. I wish I knew absolute clarity, because I don't know that that's the, I mean, that's the quest, that's the aspiration, right?
Yeah, does that even exist? I'm not sure it does.
Bit of a farce, I'm gonna tell you. But it's like, all I need to see is enough to get the next step. Like, that part I know. And that season I told you about, when I had my first business, it was a nonprofit. It was a youth center, fronted as a coffee shop. And we did concerts, we did music festivals. We had over 15,000 kids come through our doors. It was awesome on the outside, but inside we lost a ton of money. And we did a music festival. Our headliner was a band called Train. They've gone on and done great things. I'd like to think that we put them on the map. Not really, but we lost $72,000 that one weekend. And I wanted to prove to my wife, to my family, to the board, to the community, I could turn this ship around. And I did what all of us do. I worked harder, 60, 70, 80-hour work weeks. And through the pain of not being able to ask for help, not knowing how to delegate, all these different things that were self-imposed, I started coping with the pain. And it started with pornography, trying to like get a sense of control. And out of the guilt of that, because I came from the church and I was leading worship for my dad's church, I shouldn't be looking at porn. I know better. So I started drinking, because that's going to help.
Oh, yeah.
And now I'm in this addictive cycle. And in short order, I started sleeping around. And I've now blown up my marriage, blown up my business, and blown up my sense of self. And I got officially divorced on a December 23rd in 2003. And Christmas was 2 days later, 2003, December 25th, I'm sitting under my Christmas tree, deciding how I wanted to take my life. And I had a supernatural experience, and I heard this voice that said, "We're not done here yet." That was my first sense of clarity. When I made a decision that I have to fix this, things started to change. And it was not an elegant, glorious, or easy path back. It was years and years of counseling and getting into personal development and reading like a mofo, attending events and conferences, and then eventually investing in mentors. I put my house in the market. I moved to Huntsville, Alabama to go sit under a guy for a year. That's how I met my wife. She was volunteering at a church there. And the rest of my story was this story of just me just getting one like ounce of clarity for each challenge. I saw something different. And it was, like I said, this really rough path of like one step forward, two steps back, it felt like most times. And yet I look back today and I wouldn't trade it for the world, because the character that it weaned into me, like it taught me, it shaped me, it corralled me past my ego and past my sense of self to a place where like I knew that I I have a gift to give. And when I started working in corporate and I was surrounded by all Fortune 500 brand people who have gone to the best schools and are making incredible money, and so many of them were just miserable. And I started to see the same patterns in their lives that I had lived. And that's when I learned like this coaching is a thing. Instead of talking about, digital transformation and innovation and all the stuff that we're supposed to be talking about, like we're talking about like real hardcore life issues. And that started my path. And so now I look at all of this as like my glimpses of clarity always came on the back end of something that made me scared spitless. And what I've realized, like Joseph Campbell said, in the cave you fear to enter lies the treasure that you seek. And so now my clarity comes when I get faced with a fear, I address it, because I've seen that fear is oftentimes an invitation for me to expand myself and my sense of belief and my sense of knowledge and my sense of capacity. And that's my opportunity to stretch.
So, Evan, have you heard of Joseph Campbell at all from any other member of our family?
No, not ever.
My husband,
Yeah.
total.
Nice.
I mean, from his original conversations with Bill Moyers, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that just that was incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that, Angus. It really was. I mean, goosebumps, right, Evan?
That was an incredible story. That's where things like that is definitely where the true clarity comes from, is those dark moments.
And in the entrepreneurial world, I think when we show ourselves vulnerable, we give others permission to do the same.
Yes.
And so many entrepreneurs I know hide, and they get stuck and they don't know how to get out. And I share that story all the time because I want people to know you are not the only one.
Yeah.
And that there are solutions to so much of this.
To whatever degree.
Whatever.
We don't look at that because you can talk about all kinds of hardships and all different degrees of pain and all those kinds of things. Whatever it is, this is not a comparison. This is not a who's more or less or anything like that. Just own what it is you're living and grow from it and get clarity. And that's why I asked, give me an example, because I know clarity for you. Yeah, we never are completely clear. I mean, hopefully right before we take our last breath, maybe that's when we'll get it. Yeah. I don't know, but
I forget who the comedian was, but they said it's always darkest right before it goes pitch black.
That's funny. That's very funny.
And yet that's what it feels like sometimes. And it's like in those darkest hours, like again, That's when you believe in yourself. This is not going to kill me. I don't care if you have to go bankrupt, if you have to like sell your house, or if you don't even have those resources to like even get out of it. It's like, here's what I know is, and some guys just wrote a book about this. It's not in the what, it's in the who. The people that came alongside of me in every one of my scenarios are the ones that fueled me through. We underestimate the impact of the caliber of people in our lives. And we become lone wolves. And that's like shooting ourselves in the foot. And the one thing I know that entrepreneurs need more than anything else is a community. We need each other, because entrepreneurs are the world's greatest gift. They're a fuel to the economy. They're innovators of what's possible. And they are the ones who truly walk in faith, because faith is spelled R-I-S-K. It's all risk. And in risk is the only time you truly feel alive. I don't care what great job you think you have and how invincible you think that role might be and how much money it creates for you. The 401k you're producing, at the end of the day, most people in those roles feel a bit numb. And so you have to choose to take risk and find challenge in those roles, in those jobs, in those things, or go and build something yourself. And that can feel scary. That can feel like impossible. And yet that risk, that very nature of risk, is the thing that will make you come alive.
And would you agree that as a coach, it is one of the greatest privileges of our lives to participate in that journey with someone else? And not only that, it is reciprocal. It actually creates even more clarity for us as we participate and help someone walk that path. It really, people think that it's one-sided and that the coach just gives all that. It's not that at all. It is a mutual growth. Would you agree?
The most simple answer is yes, absolutely. And it's like being a parent. You're so proud when your client punches through things that held them back. And I become the biggest cheerleader, and I just want them to win. That's what I tell all my clients. I want you to win. I don't want you to win because it's going to get me some testimonial. I'm not interested in me getting some pat on the back. I'm living my mission right now, and my mission is to see you win. And if you win, I know that some good things happen. But here's the rub. I'm also not more committed to the result than they are. And so there's this little piece of me that I want them to win, but just like a parent, I can't do things that they're not willing to do for themselves. So I also have to show restraint when I'm coaching. But when that aha moment goes, you're like, damn, it's just like, yes. And you can see it in their face. You can see it, in their countenance. Dang, like just makes you come alive. I'm like, yep, this is what I was born to do. Yep. Damn straight. Come on.
That's amazing.
Especially when somebody is like my guys, they're kicking ass. Like most of my guys are all successful in what they've done already. They're not in a place necessarily that they need a ton of accolades or something like that. Maybe they've already, had an exit and now they're looking to start the next thing. So they've got to punch through some of those, fears and, get their legs under them. Even those people have limits to the success they're experiencing that either don't translate into other areas or their intuition is calling them to the next level. And that place of risk feels even more like crazy. It's like, but if I risk, will I possibly lose what I've already built? And it's like, well, do you trust you? Do you believe in you? Like, who needs to be in your corner? First, you. Second, who else? Let's surround you with people that are going to help you succeed, because now all of a sudden you've mitigated a ton of risk. Use the wisdom of the things that held you back last time. Like, oh, you know what? I was really crappy at bookkeeping. I need a finance guy. Okay, cool. Go get that person. What else? Shoot, man, I hate marketing. It's really hard for me to do that. There's stupid social media, blah, blah, blah. Guess what? There's other people that don't think it's stupid. And they think it's amazing. Let's go find that person. Okay, cool. You know, like you just like, you don't realize all the things that you know. And like, what else? Tell me what, well, and what about this? Okay, let's go find that person. Like all of a sudden they're like, oh my gosh, this is actually going to be easy. Yep. You already know what you need to do. Like, and this is why I tell people, it's like, my job isn't here to tell you something that's so revolutionary. You're like, oh my gosh, Angus, that's amazing. I've never heard that before. It's like, no, my goal is to extract from you all the things you've already known and remind you of your greatness, remind you of what you're capable of, remind you of the dreams and passions and drive that is deep within you, because your intuition is crying to come out. It is crying to bring expansion into the world. And as an entrepreneur, you know that it's like there's something in you to bring value. And so all we want to do is just like pop open that balloon and let it all come out. You know, and bring your greatness into the world. Now I want to do that with my kids. Like just
blow it in and then let it out. Yeah.
You know, that's what it's all about.
Yes.
I'd be taken a whole different way if you let it.
Yeah.
There's my third grade humor right there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing.
So Evan,
yes,
where are you gonna what's your dream, baby?
Where's it all gonna come out?
Where's your dream?
Oh man, that's been something I've always, my mom knows this. That's always been my biggest struggle, is like, what the hell do I want to do? You know what I mean? And I'm definitely more clear now than I've ever been. I absolutely love coaching and having those conversations that you mentioned, and coaching and podcasting are my two main things that I love doing. So that's what I do.
And you know, Angus, I gotta tell you, this guy too, I'm so blessed. I just am in awe of the fact that I get to be his mom, really.
I'm pretty amazing.
He is. And you know, what's so exciting, you know, we're so opposite. It's really hard for me to be quiet, because he is a calm person. He is a thoughtful person. He's not going to jump in and just talk over people it's just his nature is so calm and kind, and being around him helps me be calm and kind and focused, instead of, I mean, I could like when you were talking about, you know, all the stuff you were talking about with the, you know, getting all the stuff out of them and everything. I would just be like, yeah, let's go, and just go. And I have to stop, because I'm not, it's not about me. It's not about me controlling the conversation or pushing the conversation or anything like that. And being on this podcast, to be honest with you, with Evan, has made me a completely different interviewer, so to speak, or conversationalist, to sit and pause and allow for that time, for that space, for things all those amazing things you said, to trickle back down into our consciousness and settle for a sec. It really, I got it. 58 years, I'm going to be 58 in a couple weeks, right? To constantly grow and learn like this is just the blessing of life, right? Every day I get to wake up. Oh my gosh, what an incredible opportunity. So
love it.
Go for it, Evan. Take us home.
Man, I am pretty amazing.
You are.
I'm also very humble too, so hopefully I help you with that as well.
Do you know it's possible to be both?
It
Oh
is.
yes. Oh yes. Yeah.
Oh, man.
So we like to kind of wrap up the conversations that we have with one specific question. And that is if you were to die tomorrow, what would be the entrepreneurial legacy that you would leave behind for your kids to use as they grow into entrepreneurs themselves?
Well, obviously, first of all, I don't want that happening for a very long time. And B, I want to have my funnels already in place, already making an impact in the world that gives them additional resources to ignite their dreams. That the systems we've built and put into place don't require me, but they are continuing to bring revenue into my family, at the same time bringing impact into the world, and that they can follow suit, run with it.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Well, thank you so much, Angus, for coming on the podcast. That was definitely one of my personal favorite conversations that we've had so far. That was a lot of fun. For people, if they are interested in you and what you do, where can they find out more about you?
Sure. They can go to angusnelson.com, or you can go to Instagram at Angus Nelson. And then the last thing, if you want, I have my manhood matrix, which is what I use to align all of my clients. You can go to manhoodmatrix.co, and learn more about the 7 levels of mastery in manhood.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Angus, for coming on the podcast. We very much appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. This has been fun, guys.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Parent Entrepreneur Power. Hopefully you came away with valuable tools you can use in your business, life, and relationship with your kids. If you want to hear more about our mission, or if you want more insights into cultivating your parent entrepreneur power, join our movement to make entrepreneurship more accessible to parents and their kids at parententrepreneurpower.com.